There are some lives you never lived that still visit you sometimes. Not every day, not loudly, not in a way you can easily explain, but sometimes in a quiet room, on a long drive, in the middle of an ordinary moment, sometime something reminds you, a song, a name, a picture, a place, a memory, a version of yourself you almost became. And for a second, you wonder, what if I had gone? What if I had stayed? What if I had said yes? What if I had said no? What if I had tried sooner? What if I had not been so afraid? What if I had become the person I thought I would be? And that question does something to you. Not because you hate your life, not because you are ungrateful, not because everything is wrong, but because somewhere inside you there is still a ghost life, a life you can still imagine, even though you never lived it. Welcome back to the Eminence Legacy podcast. I'm host Luis Cadena, and this is Midnight Questions, the space where we don't rush past the question that follow us when the world gets quiet. Tonight, we sit with one that has visited almost everyone at some point. Do you ever think about the person you might have become? That life that you once thought you would have? Most people don't talk about this because it sounds strange. How do you explain missing a life you never actually had? How do you grieve a version of yourself that never fully existed? How do you admit that even while living this life, there are moments when you still wonder about another one? The job you never took, the business you never started, the relationship you walked away from, or the one you stayed in too long, the city you never moved to, the call you never made, the apology you never gave, the book you never wrote, the body you never built, the dream you kept postponing until it stopped feeling close. Those are ghost lives, not because they are real, but because they still have a presence. They walk through your thoughts sometimes. Some days, they stand in the doorway of memory. They don't always accuse you. Sometimes they just look at you. And that might be the hardest part, because regret usually speaks loud. But ghost lives, they whisper. Maybe that is what makes them so powerful. A ghost life does not always come to destroy your peace. Sometimes it comes as a question. What would have happened if you had chosen differently? And if you are honest, there are some nights when that question feels heavier than you expect, because every choice has a cost, and every yes creates a path, every no closes another. Every season you enter leaves another season unlived. And no matter how wise you are, no matter how faithful you try to be, no matter how much you grow, you will not get to live every possible version of your life. That is one of the quiet truths of being human. You only get one road at one time. And sometimes, even when the road you are on is meaningful, You can still think about the road you did not take. That does not make you weak. It makes you aware. It means you understand that life is sacred, and sacred things carry weight. There is a grief that does not come from losing something you owned. It comes from realizing you never became. That kind of grief is hard to name because nobody brings food to your house for it. Nobody checks on you about it. Nobody says, I'm sorry for the version of you that never got to exist. So you carry it quietly, the younger version of you with the dream, the braver version of you that almost made the move, the healthier version of you that was possible if you had started sooner. The more honest version of you that could have been born for one conversation you kept delaying. The freer version of you that might have existed if fear had not sounded so convincing. And sometimes you meet those versions in your mind. Not fully. Just enough to feel them. And maybe that is why this question is so human. Because none of us are only grieving what happened. Sometimes we are grieving what never got to happen. Not because we want to live regret, but because part of us still knows something was possible. But here is where we have to be gentle and honest. Not every ghost life is telling you to go back. They're not trying to pull you back. Some are simply showing you what still matters. Maybe the business you never started is not there to shame you. Maybe it is there to show you that creativity is still alive. Maybe the relationship you lost is not there to pull you backward. Maybe it is to teach you what you need to stop repeating. Maybe the city you never moved to is not there to haunt you. Maybe it is there to remind you that courage was once closer than you think. Maybe the version of yourself you never became is not there to condemn the life you have. Maybe it is there to reveal the part of you that still wants to wake up. That matters, because if you misunderstand the ghost, you might start worshiping a life that never had to carry reality. And that is dangerous. The life you imagine does not have bills. It does not have conflict. It does not have disappointment. It does not have ordinary Tuesdays. It does not have the full cost. It only has the parts your mind kept polished. So be careful. Sometimes we don't miss the other life. We miss the possibilities we felt before fear, time, pain, or responsibility changed us. That is different. So maybe tonight, the question is not, would my life have been better if I had chosen differently? Maybe the question is, what part of me is still asking to be lived? That is the deeper question, because some ghost lives are not invitations backwards. They are signals forward. They reveal what your life still needs. More courage, more honesty, more creativity, more discipline, more tenderness, more obedience, more risk, more presence, more freedom, more truth. And if you listen carefully, The ghost life may not be saying, go back. It may be saying, do not bury this part of you again. That is where regret can become wisdom. Not when you punish yourself with it, but when you let it teach you what still deserves attention. There is something humbling about knowing you cannot live every life. You cannot become every version. You cannot choose every road. You cannot recover every year. You cannot undo every decision. And yet, God does not need every possible version of you, of your life, to work with the one that remains. That is mercy, not cheap mercy, not the kind that pretends choices do not matter. Choices matter. Time matters. Obedience matters. Delays matter. But your life is not useless because another version never happened. Your life is not over because one road closed. Your purpose is not dead because one chapter did not become what you imagined. Sometimes grace meets you, not in the life you dreamed about, but in the life still sitting in your hands. And maybe that is where faith becomes real. Not in a pretending you do not understand. Not in denying what you lost. Not in ignoring the ache. But in trusting that even here, even now, even after the choices, the decisions, there is still something entrusted to you. So what do we do with the ghost lives we never led? We do not chase them blindly. We do not worship them. We do not let them become a second home. We do not punish ourselves every time they visit. We sit with them honestly, and we ask better questions. What ghost life still visits me? Name it. Not dramatically, honestly. The dream, the choice, the relationship, the place, the version of you. Name the life that still walks through your thoughts sometimes, some days. Because what you refuse to name will keep haunting you without language. What does that ghost life reveal about what still matters to me? Does it reveal creativity, courage, love, freedom, healing, discipline, purpose, adventure, truth? Maybe the ghost is not asking you to become that exact version. Maybe it's revealing the value you abandoned. What part of that life can I honor in this one? This is where hope begins. Maybe you cannot go back and become that person. But you can still write. You can still heal. You can still train. You can still speak. You can still forgive. You can still build. You can still learn. You can still become more honest. You can still recover the part of you that got buried under delay. You cannot lead every life, but you can lead this one. And this one still counts. Tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself one question. What life have I been mourning without admitting it? Write it down. Just one sentence. Not speech. No speech. No judgment. No shame. Then underneath it, write this. What is one piece of that life I can still honor now. Maybe not the whole dream, maybe not the whole road, maybe not the whole version, just one piece, one value, one practice, one conversation, one beginning, one act of courage, one honest return. Because sometimes healing does not come from trying to resurrect the past. It begins when you look that ghost in the eyes, refuse to let it keep everything, and bring one living piece of the possibility back into the life you still have. So before we go, sit with this for a moment. There are lives you will never live. That is true. There are versions of you that will never fully exist. That is true too. There are roads that closed, years that passed, choices that shaped things, moments you cannot return to. And that can ache. Let it ache honestly, but do not let the ache become your ruler, because you are still here. And the life in front of you is not a leftover life. It may be complicated. It may be different. It may carry scars. It may not look like what you imagined, but it is still alive. And while something is still alive, something can still be led. If this episode found you tonight, do not let it become a temporary visit. If you are listening to this on a web browser or a link someone texted you, do not let this be a temporary visit. Hit follow right now in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Legacy builders don't just visit truth, they stay connected. And if someone came to mind while you listen, someone who still wonders about the life they never lived, send this to them. No explanation needed. Just send it. Sometimes the right question does not solve everything. Sometimes it simply gives language to what has been sitting in the dark. The ghost lives we never led do not have to become prison. They can become teachers. They can show us what still matters. They can reveal what we buried. They can remind us of courage we still need. But they do not get to replace the life that is still entrusted to us. Because that life that has been entrusted still matters. So tonight, do not curse the life you have because of the life you imagine. Do not worship the road you never walked and abandon the ground still under your feet. Ask the question honestly. What part of me is still asking to be lived? And then, quietly, bring that part back into the life you still have. This is the Eminence Legacy podcast. This is Midnight Questions. I'm Jose Luis Cadena. Have a peaceful night. And remember, those questions don't show up to disturb you. They show up to direct you. Together, let's rise to our eminence. Catch you in the next one.